Good morning, Amy Jacobson here. Paul Vallis in for Dan Proft, who I have to chuckle. Dan took today off to play golf, and it is pouring outside. I'm sorry. He's in a golf tournament today and tomorrow, so good luck with that. I hope you brought your umbrella. And playing golf in the rain is miserable. But you don't like playing golf at all. Well, you got to turn your mic on. Oh, it is on. There we go. Sorry.
When I go to golfing tournaments, I caddy.
Oh,
yeah. And the only
you do those
right.
Those
I caddy. I caddy,
starts?
or I drive the cart.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, the only time I'll actually golf is when they do best ball.
Right, exactly.
Otherwise, I'm a disaster.
Well, we're having that. Our golf tournament is Monday, July 27th at Mistwood Golf Club in Romeoville.
Do you need
It's
a
called
caddy?
the 2020 Back to Business Golf Outing. With this just in, Paul Vallis is going to be my caddy. But if you want to golf with us, we'll just go to 560theanswer.com/golf, and it's a great, back to business. If you golf with us, it's $1,196, but you get a full day of golf, lunch, breakfast, plus we give you 25 one-minute commercials right here to, promote
Nice.
your business and get back to business in Illinois. Again, 560theanswer.com/golf. I'm not above plugging an event for our station. Believe it was last week. I always check Feeder, first of all, to make sure I'm not in Feeder. But he's the, columnist, Robert Feeder's been around for a long time. He broke the story about Maze Jackson and his co-host Todd Stroger and producer Sonia Escobar that walked out at WVON. And joining us now is Maze Jackson to tell us exactly what happened and why he left. Good morning, Maze. How are you?
Good morning, Amy. Good morning, Paul. How are you today?
Fine,
We're
Maze.
great. So what happened?
Well, essentially, I was censored and told that I could no longer mention Mayor Lightfoot. I could no longer mention anything connected to Mayor Lightfoot. And I was to hang up on callers if they called and said anything negative about Mayor Lightfoot because I was attacking a black woman, essentially.
Well, what was your point of contention with Mayor Lightfoot and the job that she's doing? Was it just for COVID or before COVID happened?
I think that it's COVID and before COVID, but I'll say COVID exacerbated what happened. I think we had just and actually George Floyd. So I think that Black Chicago had just watched as we saw our side of the town abandoned by police, deserted because they were told to stand down. And our neighborhoods went up in flames. And then we later went on to find out that Mayor Lightfoot had encouraged street organizations as they spoke in code, which we later found out were gang members, were charged with, through these community organizations, charged with protecting, quote unquote, their neighborhoods. And as Alderman Ray Lopez said, the only identifier was black. And so I was getting calls of people saying that they were getting attacked in Little Village, getting attacked in Berwyn and Cicero by these street organizations that the mayor had known about. And so we talked about it, and we brought Gary McCarthy on, who said that the city did not have to go up. We talked to a variety of sources who really highlighted the fact that the response to the George Floyd uprisings was just poor. And so we talked about it, and it was essentially the mayor's office got upset, apparently, and essentially we were censored by the station.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. I also talked to a number of veteran police officers. I'm not going to mention their names because, let's face it,
No, we don't need the names, but we need to hear their stories.
But they
so
said
what
the
did they
same
say?
thing. She did not reach out. No one from the administration reached out to the veterans who have been on the front lines and could have advised her on how to be better prepared for the, for the big protests. I mean, it's not like we didn't see these
those were
things
riots.
coming. The riots.
Well, she knew it was
yeah.
coming, and I heard that she didn't want to pay overtime.
She
That
didn't
this
want to
was
pay
all
overtime.
about overtime.
And then, if you remember, the next day they flooded everybody to the downtown area and did the things that they should have done the first time.
Yeah, they actually took cops
Right.
off the lakefront, who
Right.
had been
And
babysitting the path.
Right, and then that opened up the other communities to devastation. So it was the inspector general is supposed to be investigating. It'll
Really?
be interesting what they come through. But there's no strategy for the police department. Look, I'm all for accountability and when people talk about the consent decree, the irony of the consent decree is it mandates things that that City Hall should have been doing a long time ago, like making sure you've got the right supervisor ratios to officers, or making sure you have cameras, workable cameras and tasers, and making sure you have continuing training and things like that. So look, I support accountability, but the mismanagement of this police department has been it's been really destructive. And
even beyond though the mismanagement of the police department, I think that there is a sense that the mayor, because she is black, has the best interest of the black community at hand, and it is it's presumed, but it has not played out. And so as we continue to see, she makes press conferences every day talking about things that are supposed to be happening in our community, and they're all unfunded mandates. I think that the black community is starting to realize that the mayor may not necessarily be an ally just because she is black. And I think we've got a challenge in the black part of Chicago of holding black politicians accountable. We got to hold all politicians accountable, but our representatives don't necessarily get a pass just because they're black. And I think the mayor has been able to leverage that when it's convenient, and then use it when and then ignore us when it's not convenient.
So what was the final conversation that you had with your bosses at WVON?
The final conversation that I said was I just could not. First of all, this is Chicago, so I understand the Chicago way. I understand how it works. There was no hard feelings. As a matter of fact, I was honored to be the host of the morning show, but I have my own values and my own principles, and I just said that I couldn't in good conscience, knowing that the black community trusts me. I ask every day what's in it for the black people, and to find out and to not be able to tell the honest truth to our listeners just was something I couldn't do, and so I chose to walk away. But instead of just walking away, I went and brokered my own time, and as we can see by the callers and the people calling us and ringing and making the switch, Black Chicago, we're at a unique time in the world. After the George Floyd uprisings, I think what we're seeing right now is Black Chicago wants accountability, regardless of who it is, regardless of race, creed, or color, or your sexual gender. We want what's coming to us.
Well, Len, let's talk about this. We have another weekend. Today's Friday. Mm-hmm. The last 3 weekends have been devastating. 87 shot last weekend, 17 killed. Here's Superintendent David Brown about why he thinks this continually is happening.
And my hopes are that the deaths of these young people won't be in vain and will prick the hearts of the decision makers who release violent offenders on electronic monitoring back into these very communities to mete out this kind of violence every weekend. You go from 9,400 people in our county jail in 2017 to 4,600 in 2020. That is not sustainable. And many of these people come right back to the very communities where they committed their crimes to commit more crimes. And we know this.
So it sounds like what I keep hearing from Superintendent Brown, he doesn't like the low to no bond. He doesn't like electronic monitoring because nobody's monitoring these people. And if you look at what happened 2 weekends ago on Father's Day, LaTroy Battle, 19 years old, was arrested for carrying a weapon, unlawful use of a weapon, gets out on probation for 18 months, goes and kills 2 teenage boys who were honor roll students who went down the street to get some candy, killed them because they asked him how tall he was. I mean, I think that Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox has blood on her hands, and I think that she's the root of this problem. And I was just wondering what you thought, and have you ever had her on your show?
I have definitely had Kim on my show. I think that Kim is not the root cause of the problem. I think the root cause of the problem is systemic racism. And I think what we've got right now is a challenge between our common sense and what we're seeing play out and what we know has happened over the years. I think
wait,
right
systemic
now,
racism, it's black on black crime. How is that racist?
I think that when you pile poor people on top of poor people and then you continue to drain resources, and again, I think that this is part of the responsibility of black elected officials. When you drive through our communities and when you look at our neighborhoods, they're not the same as Oakland. They're not the same as all of the surrounding suburbs because there's been systemic disinvestment. And so what you look at is people who are competing to subsist are being put in a position where they're fighting against each other. I think when you look at what happened with the murder, that the teen that murdered those two young people who asked him, I think you got to ask what makes a person like that. I don't think that we're just super criminals. I think that young man probably had some mental health issues that went unaddressed.
Right.
And so when we say, of course, but hold on, because when we say, of course, but then we say, but it's black on black crime, without addressing the fact that there is truly mental illness, and we are talking about people who see trauma on a daily basis. Let me just tell you, this morning on the way to work, I live in a challenging neighborhood. I drove past a car, and there were two people laid out in the car this morning, and I was scared to stop because I didn't know if they were dead or if they had fallen asleep. And so what I am suggesting is that there are real problems in our community, and I don't doubt that. We have an internal problem that we definitely need to deal with, but at the same time, we cannot allow ourselves to be denigrated from the outside with the external problems, so that when we do fix what's going on in the black community, that our communities haven't been decimated from external forces.
I wanted to ask a question, and Mays, I agree with you 100% about changing the preconditions in the communities that are ultimately the root causes of the violence. And the so-called economic development plan that they just came out with will do nothing. It's short on specifics. They're still
fluff. It's fluff. It is an unfulfilled mandate again, coming up, giving us press conferences with nothing behind it. Look, we know that we're $700 million in debt right now.
Right.
$700 million in debt before we get to the next budget, and we don't even know where that money is coming from. And then they come up and give us fluffy press conferences and put people up and march them up and tell us that this is a version of reparations, et cetera. Look, Black Chicago wants tangible outcomes.
Right.
Tangible outcomes, not just fluff and not just press conferences. And it's almost baffling to me that nobody sees this. It's driving me batty almost.
I know, like press conferences about taste to go.
Look,
and summer, no, this is my favorite. Summer dance and place parties. That's going to make everything better. You want to, listen to Commissioner Kelly. I couldn't believe this.
Tonight, Summer Dance and Place. We're encouraging summer dance parties, social distant dance parties across the city, dancing to the Bollywood groove.
We got Bollywood tonight. It's going to be great. That's going to make everything better. I mean, but
I think that they really here's what I think. I think the mayor was good with memes, and I think she was good at keeping people in the house and telling them to stay in place.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to governing, I think they really don't have a clue. And so that's why they do these press conferences with these flowery statements with no real substance. What I have found is that I do not know anybody in Chicago who knows what's going on and how to get it done. They've not been engaged. The mayor has been – I would tell you that I would compare the mayor to Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, she's a rookie. Yeah. She's a rookie politician. Pritzker's a rookie, and so is Trump. And as a coach, you always take a risk when you hire rookies or put rookies on your team. I'm telling you.
She is definitely somebody who cannot take any criticism under any circumstances.
No, well, neither can Trump.
Yeah, that's right. So it's just that Trump is more entertaining.
I don't know.
Well, not according to the memes.
Right.
Not according to the mayor's memes. I think that she has probably started to believe her memes.
Right.
Well, she's
were
become
real.
a Hollywood lover. I mean, now she's on Jimmy Fallon. She's doing, what Obama did. Obama, just sucked up to Hollywood. Now she's Lightfoot and Oprah are good friends now. See what's happened to her?
So I think that the mayor, and I'm probably not politically correct in saying this, but she has the trifecta. She's the mayor of Chicago, she's a woman, and she's LGBTQ. You take all of those, and those fit all of the boxes that make people say, hey, we're a progressive society, we are doing the right thing. But I think when it comes down to substance, we've yet to see that. I still have hope. I still have hope. We got 3 years, so I don't have a choice but to have hope. But I do think that we have to get beyond the mayor being mad at people because they didn't support her and getting mad at criticism. It's like iron sharpens iron. The mayor needs to be engaging more people who understand instead of cutting people off and fighting with the president. We are going to need the federal government to get bailed out. We still haven't gotten the $200 million that they promised us from the ambulance reimbursement for this budget, right? We just had Alderman Beal on, and they broke it down that $200 million has still not been recouped from the federal government for last year's budget. So now we're looking at $900 million potentially before we get out of this year, and another $1 billion tax increase coming for 2021.
Yeah, Mays is exactly right. And if you remember, before the pandemic, after they balanced this budget, and half the budget was balanced using smoke and mirrors and one-time revenues and things like that, they were looking at a projected budget deficit next year of $1 billion. And that was before the pandemic.
And we, the taxpayers, are going to have to pay for
That's
all
right,
this.
because at the end of the day, they're going to have to go back to the property tax wells, or they're going to have to dramatically cut spending across the board, which I think they're going to be reluctant to do.
All right, Mays Jackson.
And let me tell you this, just really quickly. I think, and as a black Chicagoan, what I think Mayor Lightfoot is doing is ushering in the gentrification and the final removal of black people from the south sides of Chicago. As we get the Obama library and as people start to expand, those families that are no longer able to pay those property taxes are going to be part of the great exodus that we've seen. Anybody who has the ability to leave. And so as these property tax burdens increase, those people who, the black community who had so much hope and trust in the mayor to change things, she might essentially wind up being the person that puts the death knell in the black community in Chicago.
Mays, I have a quick question. Addressing the preconditions and the underlying reasons for the violence, and that aside, putting that, what can the police do? What should the police strategy be? Do they need a witness protection program? They're clearly not making arrests. The clearance rate on murders is 20%, on shootings is 5%.
Well, Superintendent Brown did mention that 2 days ago. He said we have a U.S. Marshals program that we could put you in a witness protection program if you come in and tell us. Because the driver of the car that killed Natalia Wallace, he knows who was in the car with him, and he's not telling police. And they shot and killed a 7-year-old girl.
Right.
I mean, what world are we living in? But anyway, Mays, answer the question. Sorry.
What can the police do differently?
I think that one of the things that I see missing from this whole conversation as it relates to the violence in the black community is black men. And the engagement of black men. I think police are one thing, and I think you can have all the law enforcement issues, programs, et cetera, but I do not think that in any successful community, it will not be successful without the engagement of strong black men. I believe that there is an anti-strong black men era in City Hall right now, so they're trying to avoid that. I think that you have to engage the men. See, I think they're trying to go back to the old model of finding old gang members to go and control the violence, but we can see that that's really a failed model. I think what you have to do is start engaging the men, the people who are everyday, hardworking, black, tax-paying citizens who are protecting their neighborhoods and protecting their blocks and engaging them. I think the strategy right now has been focused on rewarding criminals, or rewarding the people who have been a part of this lifestyle by engaging them and giving them a job, which means that they've got a foot in the gang and a foot out to be able to quote unquote engage, and start talking to the fathers who have been successful in keeping their kids off the streets. Look, there are 100 shootings a week, but for every 100 shootings that there are every weekend, there are hundreds of thousands that do not happen because there are black fathers that are engaged with their kids, their families. They are at ball games. They are doing. How do we engage? How do we refocus our money that we are spending on gang prevention and crime and these violence interrupters? And how do we take, like this year, the president has already sent $350 million to Chicago for violence prevention. $350 million that went to who? Where? Where are those dollars? And can you imagine a $350 million infusion into the south and west sides to economic development, to people who got it right?
Probably used to pay off pensions and debt. Yeah, who knows? All right, well, Mays Jackson, we're going to have to leave it there for today, but we'd love to have you back, and thank you so much. And where can we listen to you? Well, we don't want to listen to you while we're on our show, but is there a podcast of your morning show that we can listen to?
Yes, you can download it. You can download it on the Facebook Live app, as well as you can go to the MaysJacksonSaid.com and you can get it all. Hey, Amy and Paul, thank you for having me this morning. And anytime, I'm honored to be on your show.
Yes, and thank you, MaysJacksonSaid.com. And I really appreciate what you did. You stood up for yourself and for Todd Stroger and for Sonia Escobar. So Blessings. Thank you so much. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
This is attorney Stephen Leahy. This isn't the first crisis we faced together. Back in '08, business professionals in trouble sought help from bankruptcy attorneys, loan modification attorneys, foreclosure defense attorneys, and IRS attorneys trying to gain full financial recovery. They should have just called me. Let me tell you about Chuck. His small business crashed in the '08 crisis. He faced 2 foreclosures, overbearing creditors, and the dreaded IRS. Chuck would not even get out of bed in the morning. His wife heard me on the radio and convinced him to hire me. We got Chuck a loan modification and a short sale. We obtained a discharge of his debt and settled what was left of his IRS liability. Now Chuck is back in business and in control of his life. You can hear Chuck tell his own story at fullfinancialrecovery.com. We can get through this new crisis too. The time to start rebuilding is now. Don't let your life's work go down the drain. Get your free guide to recovery at fullfinancialrecovery.com. That's fullfinancialrecovery.com. Or call me right now at 312-664